G'day, Jamie Pike here from Pikes Wines in the Clare Valley. Going to talk you through our 2019 Traditionale Riesling today. So this is a wine that's very, very important to us, the Traditionale, and it's definitely our largest selling wine, and it's what we're best known for. We make this, the Traditionale Riesling, predominantly from our own vineyard. So as you can see behind me, we're located in the Polish Hill sub-region of Clare Valley, and vintage to vintage, this is typically in that 70 to 80% estate grown fruit. And then the next largest components come from some of our growers, some of which have been growing for us for over 20 years. So regions like Watervale, Leasingham, White Hart in the north, and Seven Hill as well are represented in this wine. So in terms of selecting the growers that we like to work with, we prefer to see our Riesling fruit come from the higher altitude, sites within the Clare Valley. We feel that gives us a higher acid, higher acidity in the fruit, and gives us a better concentration of flavour, and definitely gets us fruit as a higher quality than some of the lower altitude vineyards. In terms of winemaking for this wine, we machine harvest our Riesling at night time, and the reason for that is that during the daytime here, I'm standing here in the vineyard now, and it's we're actually in vintage right now, and it's 37 degrees. So if we're hand picking or harvesting during the daytime, it means our fruit is a lot warmer. So we harvest at night time, we get cooler fruit, and also by using the machine harvester, we can make sure that the fruit is delivered to the winery in the fastest time possible, and that's really important in terms of avoiding oxidation and maintaining the aromatic qualities of the Riesling. So, we can typically have the grapes harvested and pressed off of skins at the winery within 45 minutes. So a really, really important part to our style of winemaking. I guess with the Traditionale, another important distinction is the fact that Traditionale is only free-run juice. So when I talk about free-run juice, that's essentially it's the very first portion of the juice that comes out. So per tonne of Riesling, we might be looking at, say, up to 650, maybe 700 litres of juice total. It's only the first 450 to 500, that very first cut, that makes it to Traditionale, and we're very proud and in making sure that is inherently part of the build, part of the makeup for Traditionale Riesling, and it's so that's done by the winemakers at the press, and they're tasting the juice as it's pressed off, and they'll make that cut by taste. So they will make sure that different vineyards, we may be able to get a little bit higher, in different vintage we might be able to get a little bit more of free-run juice, but they're making that cut by taste at the time. Another important distinction for our style of Riesling winemaking is we only ferment clear juice. So after the juice is pressed, after the grapes are pressed, we take that juice and we let it settle in a tank. So just like you'll get orange juice, you get all the pulp and the bits floating through it, you get grape solids in the juice as well. So over a period of a few days, a few weeks, sometimes it may be, won't be, it'll be all the way through to the end of harvest. That juice is settling out, and then we transfer the clear juice from the top of the tank into another tank for fermentation. We also only ferment in stainless steel, and we inoculate with a neutral wine yeast. And the reason we do that is that we are wanting to make sure that the hero of that wine is the flavour of the grapes, the flavour of Riesling as it comes from the vineyard. We don't want yeast-derived flavours. We want a neutral yeast to allow the grapes to shine. So with the Traditionale, it's typically made in quite a dry style, so we'll stop fermentation around about 4 grams per litre residual sugar, maybe just a bit lower, and that little bit of that tiny amount of sweetness just gives some generosity. This wine is typically released at the beginning of September every year, and it needs to be approachable and ready to go, and that little bit of residual sugar definitely helps. Ends up being around about 11% alcohol, at least this vintage did, the 2019, but it can be anywhere between 10.5% and up to 12%. In terms of the description of the wine, on the nose, we see really lovely citrus, ripe limes, kaffir lime leaf, a little bit of lemon blossom, and it's also just got this hint of minerality, and we see that throughout Riesling, in particular in the Polisher River region, and we suspect that has something to do with the soil structure here. So we have predominantly a slate subsoil, or a slate type of subsoil, and we think that the minerals and that minerality come through from the soil profile. On the palate, again, those citrus flavours, really lovely, almost like a lime cordial, brown lime cordial. I guess it tastes like a sweet flavour, but then it doesn't actually have any residual sugar. So you get the flavours, but then the dryness and that lovely acidity comes through and freshens the palate up and provides a fantastic length as well. And that tiny amount of residual sugar that's there, this vintage is 3.7 grams. You know, it just provides some lovely palate weight and texture to the wine. Cellaring of this wine, you know, this, depending on how you like to drink Riesling, this could last up to 20 years in the cellar. If you like it young and fresh and more in that citrus, kind of bright citrus flavours, drink it in its youth, you know, maybe up to 5 years. If you like it more honey toast and you know, developed, then leave it in the cellar for up to 15, 20 years if you're really keen. But we'll start developing those flavours from about 7 years onwards. Food matches. Look, it's really hard to go past seafood for this style of Riesling. Freshly